financial needs.
Ngaro na lawa to kuma ta bak. Asira linga da fo ko nyi founding kila.
Hey, elafta maboro la bang. Kalpo efa, igiso SO, na yuna jang. Iba din kiyalto. Kati yuna wallet, ibe falindiro ke kan sandiri nyat.
Ni la yuna wallet to si muna fanno tulo yabo mano kandrin. Ni fenja jama. Isi sanno la yuna wallet to kono. Yalla kamo soto. Ila wallet to kono.
Alkana la konda no tay. Kafi yuna wallet anatan tolle bukan na balwo fanondi. Abe so na yaren ko bulu podo. Ne la mobile scan. Yo, science ise maboro ke wato men diate.
Ko be sandro ke fangole ba. Ko ba ke kan dimbalem. Isi ñun lonko e sandro se yona enterprise wato wati. Ani la yona wallet to la. Ibe lan kamo soto kay la wallet to kono.
Alina nga kafun nanyi yuna dimbayal kan kasandiro ke yuna bitikoto. Alina kata nyin ko kentat. Na sulo fe lolu si sandiro kije se maboro fanan keje.
Moro jundi ana nyum ko di mabal ni kadeda.
Hello and welcome to another edition of our show, and we are back in the studio again. I think this is the third episode of our Ramadan series here on Kerr Fatou. Today I have members of the mainstream effective education implementing system. Is that what it is called,
Yes.
Mr. Jeng?
Mainstreaming effective intervention.
Okay.
Strategies.
School for schools, and of course we are joined by Muru Jeng. He is the Director of Curriculum. Honorable Sidia is the Linguistic. He's also part of the team. My girl, very okay. Muso sending nane. But into Hansa Mbitanamati, we have Antibin. Antibin is the head of the effective intervention, and of course, Mr. Sanyang is also part of the Directorate of Curriculum. Gentlemen and lady, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
I want us to look at the program itself first. What really is the objective of this program?
Well, maybe the CEO, Fatou bin Job, will start that discussion on what the EI is,
Yeah.
and what the MES pilot program in the schools are. Then we will start the discussion that way.
Fatou,
Okay.
please.
Thank you very much for having us, Fatou. Effective Intervention is an NGO
Yeah.
that came into this country, I think, around 2015, 2005, rather.
No.
2005, and the funding was for a trial to see what they wanted to try out was 2.5 hours after school for children who are in school and for children who are not in school, because some of them were not in school, to see if their strategy would work with improvement of basic skills, foundational learning skills for these children. We went into communities. We started with LRR and NBR, and within those communities, we ask the schools to identify the children that are not making progress at all. They're not, they're just moving and going and not really getting much out of school. Later on, the communities were bringing in children that were not even in school. They were out of school somewhere. Some of them were in the daras, others were not in school. They were doing other things. So the setups, we call them centers. We have these centers in the neighborhood that ended up becoming growing from what we originally intended and what the communities needed. So the trial went on for 3 years, started in grade 1, and with the EI strategies, we moved them to grade 3. And at the end of the grade 3, they tested the children, and definitely everybody was like, you know, this is not happening. The children in the program were doing 4 or 5 times better than the children in the control groups. After the second year, Ministry of Education said, look, yeah, we understand now, it's working for this category of children. But what we want is, can you go to these specific areas? And that was CRR North and CRR South, which are the most difficult, if not the most, close to the most difficult environments for education and schools and everything. So we did that, and that was the 3rd phase. And the Ministry of Education sponsored it. And we did CRR North and South, the same thing. The children who went through the intervention were still doing better than the other children. So ministry finally, you know, decided, we came up with the idea, let's look at how best we can make the country as a whole benefit in this program. And the idea of mainstreaming the EI strategy was discussed by my predecessor, Honorable Walker Boy and late Junior Sanyang, and afterwards they brought in other stakeholders in the ministry until finally they decided that they really want this in the schools, and that is how luckily World Bank ended up funding it for us to do an FLN project, get into the schools, and that's why we say mainstreaming effective intervention in schools, MEISS, MEISS. And so we took it up and worked on the preparations and everything. It was fast and quick and ruthless, but we did it between Mr. Jeng and the other stakeholders from the ministry and EI. We were able to start the program after rigorous trainings, different kinds of trainings, and we were able to get into the schools when school opened. I think 2 weeks or so after school opened. October 3rd is when we started. So we are in the schools. In the schools, and train enough teachers to meet the requirements for the 55 schools in the pilot. So we are doing a pilot. We're doing a pilot for World Bank, for ministry, sponsored by World Bank.
So how effective has this pilot project been, you know, from your own perspective as a ministry?
Yeah, I mean, like the CEO has rightly mentioned, this started as an after-school program, but when it was evaluated, the beneficiary students were doing 5 times much better than the control group. We realized this is really making impact into basic literacy and numeracy, and that's the foundational level. If you miss to get that solid foundation for the learners, they will keep catching up in the rest of their schooling. So this is why we are convinced as a ministry that we need to look at how we integrate this into our normal school system, no more after-school program. But in doing that, we need to look at, we have systems in place. We have cluster monitors, we have senior masters who are doing monitoring. We do train teachers, we provide the materials, but if their strategies can work better, and that is what we are piloting. We want to see if we are mainstreaming their strategies, because they do monitoring, they train teachers, they monitor teachers, they develop teaching and learning materials. So we are saying, let's take those strategies and mainstream them. And if we do, we will evaluate. If it works, then we plan to roll out. And that is when the ministry approached the World Bank and said, okay, can we be supported in this? So that we can contract EI and work with them for a pilot period to see how that mainstreaming will happen, what impact it will have. And we are into year 1 because, like she mentioned, this started in October. But before the October start, I mean, academic year of the Gambia starts in around September. But by October, when we were about to start, it means we had to do a lot of rush to make sure the materials are available. We train the teachers and orientate other stakeholders like the regional directors and their staff so that all of us begin to take part in this. Because the design of the project is such that 80% of implementation is led in year 1 by EI, and MOPSI will do the 20%. In year 2, that is by next academic year, is going to be 50-50. Whatever EI is doing right now in terms of material development, in terms of teacher training, in terms of monitoring, 50% will be EI-led and 50% will be MOPSI. Because gradually by the 3rd year, because it's a 3rd year project, by the 3rd year, MOPSI has developed all the necessary capacity to now start rolling this out within the given pilot schools. So by year 3, 80% implementation is going to be MOPSI-led. And then EI will be, just supporting and then tuning some of the gaps we have in terms of either monitoring or teacher training or material design and development. But already, we conducted a baseline before the implementation because we want to see what progress, what impact this has. And of course, we are planning to do a midline by December of, I think, 2025. But even the current assessments that are standardized assessments that are done, we are beginning to see significant progress if you compare their baseline and these current assessments that we are doing. So we are seeing, in terms of student learning outcome, the program is really making big impact. But in terms of, we will also evaluate in terms of changes in the way we monitor school vis-a-vis what used to happen in terms of teacher training, vis-a-vis what used to happen. We'll also evaluate that towards the end of the project. So that we see what have we learned from this project.
So, and so how, when do we expect like 100% coverage? Because if it's making great impact in already schools that it has been piloted in, when are we expecting 100% coverage for all schools?
Thank you very much, Fatou, for having me. Like the director and the CEO have said, this is a 3-year pilot. By the time the 3-year elapses, the ministry would have taken over everything that is done by effective intervention in the schools. Now, currently we are in 55 schools. So like the director have said, after the 2nd year, you will realize that you will be having 50% of the schools in the country. Currently in the Gambia, in our public schools, we have about 630 public schools. When we say
and we are only in 55.
We are
See, a lot of us are missing out.
So that is very important because this is a pilot. Now, you cannot go and roll out in the beginning when you don't see the results. We have seen what they have done in terms of their after-school support. We have seen the results and we are impressed. We want that to be in the public schools. Now, after these 3 years, by the end of the 3 years, we will be in all the schools in the country with the effective intervention strategies.
Oh, interesting. Now, is that...
And I want to just add on, by design, the EI intervention, they had no experience in using L1. They were using English language, and they were also intervening in the area of numeracy. It was literacy numeracy, but literacy numeracy through L2. Here, L2 is English. All right. So, but then the same project support that we received from the bank to give us this opportunity to pilot mainstreaming EI into our school is the same project that is also supporting us in the L1, which is the use of national languages in our school. For the first time, we have the policy developed based on the language mapping that was done. We'll discuss further on all these areas. But because we have the language policy, ready now. Implementation of that policy would begin from ECD to grade 3 as medium of instruction. But from grade 4 onwards, these languages will be taught as subjects. This is what is in the policy. But now, how do you implement that? What are the requirements? What are the implications for you to implement that policy in terms of design and development of teaching and learning materials, in terms of teacher training, in terms of resources to monitor the pilot tests you are doing with these materials that you are designing? That is a host of arrangement and logistical requirement that we have to prepare as a country. We are leveraging their pilot to test one of the languages. But the rest of the other languages, we have packaged that into a consultancy. Right now, we have evaluated the submissions and we have evaluated the technical proposals that were submitted by the potential consultancy firm, because we want to contract them for 5 years. And within these 5 years now, all the 7 languages that are mentioned in the language policy will be pilot tested through that consultancy service, so that it is no more EI. In fact, they are just being generous to allow us test one of the languages, because that was not the contract we had with them. The contract we had with them was to implement their after-school program into our schools. So whatever they are doing right now in terms of supporting the monitoring, supporting the teacher training in this language is bonus for us as a ministry.
As a ministry.
Because that was not supposed to be in that contract. It was supposed to be in the third-party implementing consultant service, which the evaluation report is now out. We are moving it to the next level, which is now submitting it to the bank for the next level of contracting the potential candidate. But in terms of the language policy, I want to really ask that the Honorable Jata, who is the linguist among us here, and who is one of those who are, very passionate and pivotal in the design and development of the language policy.
Honorable, first I wanted to know, why do you think it's important to have our national languages at our schools from this level, from the basic level? Why is it important?
If you ask me this question, I find it very funny. I find you funny.
Why?
And I find you
because we have never had it.
Wait. A human being is asking me, why is it important for him or her to learn a foreign language to the detriment of his or her own? That's the question you're asking me. Isn't it funny that we who are here now speaking about this very important matter, which is of concern to everybody in the Gambia, but only a fragment of people are understanding what we are saying?
That's one thing.
That's one thing. Can we say?
Are you happy about that?
No, I'm not happy. But my thing is, I'm not happy, but I don't know which medium to use. Because it becomes confusing for me. Wolof and Mandinka Jahas Bahas. Jahas Bahas?
Yes.
Okay, you see, but if you speak Wolof, he understands, I understand, she understands, everybody understands that.
Yeah.
If you speak Mandinka, the same.
Okay.
But the problem is that historically, something has happened which has created this situation. Why we are asking whether we should learn our own languages. Isn't that funny?
I'm asking, why is it important? Why is it important? I want us people to know.
Now I'm going to ask you. I'm going to answer you. But I'm going to talk. This is going to be a Socratic conversation. You ask me, I ask you.
Okay.
Now you're asking me why it is important for a child to learn a language which is natural to him or her. That's a question I find funny. Because that is what is natural to him or her. That is the natural means through which he or she acquires knowledge. This one just came as an imposition. And it's very funny that almost about 6 decades of independence, we are still using the very language that they used to suppress our own. And that is what the freedom that we want to bring about. We have fettered the education of our kids. You included, everybody, you, all of you, expect me, because me, I started learning in my own language. So that I'm different from you.
Yeah.
I had the privilege to begin my natural education in my natural language. And I would say that I am better. I learned better than those who went to school with me at the time. Not because I'm more intelligent, but because I had been introduced to the natural instrument that helps me to learn better. And the reason why we are doing that, and it is very serious, 6 decades after our independence, we are still allowing our children to be, their education is to be fettered. Look at all the examination results. English always a casualty. Mathematics is a casualty. All the scientific subjects are always casualty. Why? Because the child has never been introduced to learning his or her natural language, which should serve as a foundation for acquiring any other language. So the reason why we are going to do that, because scientifically, a child learns better. She said this. The child learns better when he or she begins education in his or her own language. It's like when you are constructing a house. Would you build a house without a foundation?
No.
It means it will collapse. Yes, we pound ourselves, we are speaking English, but we don't speak English properly. Because I'm not speaking English like the English person. My accent, my intonation, everything is different from him or her. Because it is not natural to me. So also, if an English person learns Mandinka or Wolof, he or she may be as good at speaking it, but then something is still lacking. Language is rooted in culture. The more you know that culture, the better you learn the language, the better you understand it.
Yeah.
That is why, however well we speak English in this country, there is still something fundamentally missing, particularly those of us who have not been to England, who have never had any stay in England, they have never acquired their education in England. It's totally different. A Gambian who is educated in England from childhood is different from a Gambian who is educated here. Even their intonation, even their speaking. Check.
Yeah.
So that is why we want to free our kids. We want to make their education rapid by helping them to learn from ECD in their natural languages. And when I say natural language, let me say something here. Because why we are saying L1, Mr. Jen said L1, before people were talking about mother tongue. That is, something is wrong with that. Because mother tongue is the language, supposedly is the language the child speaks. It is not true in all cases. My mother tongue is not Mandinka.
Yeah.
My mother tongue is Fula. But my mother never spoke to me Fula when I was a kid, because my mother is married in a community where no Fula exists. So she was bound to speak Mandinka, even though she still speaks she still speaks Fula. So my mother tongue is not what I have. I learned Mandinka, which is my father tongue. So you see the difference.
Yeah.
So when you say L1, it means a language which is not necessarily a child's mother tongue, but it's the language she has grown to speak from cradle. And there are many kids like that in the Gambia here. So that is why we refuse to say mother tongue, because it will be misleading. There are many children in schools who are not using their mother, they are using L1. That's the language in which the child has grown to speak. It may be a community language. Take Wolof, for example, in Banjul. All the children who are born in Banjul are not necessarily naturally Wolof.
No.
They are not ethnically Wolof. They are linguistically Wolof, ethnically something else.
Yeah.
But L1 is as natural to them as an ethnic Wolof. That's why we say L1. And you find that, like in Banjul, if you want to teach, if you want to help children to learn, you have to choose the language which is natural to almost 80-90% of them. Not so.
Yeah.
So that's why L1 comes into play. And if you go throughout the country, he will tell you that because they have done the language mapping, and it's very informative and very interesting. For example, if you go to Fonyi, people think that Fonyi is Jola. You go to Mayok, if Jola is not the dominant language there, it's Fula.
It's Fula. Yes.
You see? So, and if you go elsewhere also, similarly, you will have the same situation. So in such situation, if you want to teach them to learn better, you must teach the language which is natural to them, which is linguistically natural to them. And that's why if you go to a school, when they start their program, I would expect that they would teach Fula to kids in Mayok, because that's what they speak.
Yeah.
The community speaks the language, the children speak the language, they grew up in that language, and therefore it's the language that you must promote. So that's the situation. The language policy is come. I started fighting for this when I came back from university in 1979. And people were seeing me as a madman. Because they say, some of them, to speak a language and to learn and to know it.
It's different.
You are all unconscious speakers of your natural languages. I say unconscious because if I give you a sentence in Wolof, I say, okay, analyze it linguistically. You cannot. Because you don't have the competence. There are two things in language, competence and performance. We all have competence and performance. But most of you have performance, no competence. Because you cannot analyze the language that you are speaking. If I tell you what is an adjective in Wolof, what is a class marker in Wolof, you don't know. When you do, then you become a conscious speaker of your language. Well, now you just speak it because that's how you learned it. Your mother doesn't tell you, okay, this is a pronoun, this is an adjective, this is a class marker, this is a verb, and all this. They don't. It is when we learn that, then you become a conscious speaker. The kids must become that. Africa is a paradox in three fundamental reasons. One, it is agreed that cradle of humanity is Africa. But here, we go to people and say, come and help us to learn our language. One paradox. Second paradox. Africa has more languages than anywhere. And it is still the only continent in the whole world where foreign languages are holding sway in the domains of officialdom and scholarship. This is a tragedy. That is why we are backward. I can stand in any academic fora or any technical fora and say this, no one will challenge you. We are backward because we are not using the instrument which is natural to us. South Korea and Ghana had independence almost the same time. Ghana economically was better than South Korea at the time. Where is South Korea now? And Ghana, with all her resources, is still tottering with underdevelopment. South Korea, in fact, in technology, I was listening to something, a documentary. Technologically, they are more advanced than the United States in some technologies. Because they are using their language. China used to be called the sleeping giant of the world. Now, economically, it is on top there.
Yeah.
And even scientifically. Look at infrastructure, the type of infrastructure Chinese, no one in the world is doing that. Build how roads until the road goes into a skyscraper. That's real knowledge.
Yeah.
But Chinese is what they are using to do that. It is not that every language has the capacity to do anything with anything in the world. So that's why we want to stop this and free our children's mind to become better philosophers, better mathematicians, better scientists. Madam, how many people are we denying their fundamental right and freedom in this country? You cannot be a president unless you speak English, unless you can read and write English. And your law says we are all equal before the law. And it says, Section 26, if you are of age, it is your right to vote and be voted for. Here you cannot be voted for because you don't speak a foreign language. It is a crime that we have been committing our people. Nobody crimes, but I'm saying it. It is a crime that we are committing against our own self and then our people. And we who speak their foreign language, we cling to it because it is giving us all the privileges that there are in the world. So you don't want to relinquish them to become one with your people. That's what we are struggling, and we will win because we are on the right track.
We will win.
Thanks.
We will win.
Before he comes for the language mapping, because I want him to brief you on that. Just because we have heard from the linguists, and I think it's very important in this discussion that we know why we are coming up with this language policy. Listen, the child is thinking in his language, whether we want to acknowledge this or not. Not in the L2. It's the L1. And by L1, we're saying the language of the home, the language that these children are interacting at home in their immediate environment, in the Bantabas or villages, if you are talking about the rural communities. And of course, in the Gambia, we're privileged such that people can speak multiple languages. In my home, I have Mandinka, Pular, Olof, Jola in my own house. So if you are talking about L1 in my house, L1 is all these 4 languages. Because the child, since they can speak, they can hear, they can communicate in any of these languages, which are called L1, they are better off to interact in the learning process if you use these languages in the classroom, rather than struggling to understand what the teacher is saying, because the teaching and learning is an interactive process where the child is communicating with the peers or with the teacher or with the material, teaching and learning material. And that means it is important that the learner uses the language, or that teaching and learning processes use the language the learner is more comfortable in and can communicate. Therefore, that will facilitate active participation and engagement in the teaching and learning process. But if only the privileged few who have access to reading materials at home, or can hear English spoken to them at home, or they have privilege to go through ECD, where they were, picking up few, competencies in these languages, are the ones that are going to benefit most in this classroom when they get to grade 1 than the majority students who are coming from poor backgrounds where English is not spoken to them. So if we believe, like the cases he has cited in the Asian countries, cite any other country, people are learning through their languages. Does not mean we cannot learn any other foreign language. Of course, English is our L2, Arabic is necessary, is our L2, French is necessary, is our L2, and any other language for that matter. It could be Mandarin, it could be, any other language. But what we are saying is, let's create that opportunity for the smooth transition from the home to the classroom, especially at foundational level, where kids are coming from home and they start learning in their womb, in their mother's womb, and we disrupt that immediately when we get them to grade 1, and they start learning in a language that they do not understand. So they don't know how to ask where they have challenges. They don't know how to participate and contribute their ideas and views in the teaching and learning process. Not because they are not intelligent, not because they are not potential scientists and good mathematicians, but because they have challenges in communicating. This is why we, in the language policy that he has mentioned, we have 2 commitments. One, to use L1 as medium of instruction from ECD to grade 3. And we teach English as L2 That would mean the way we teach English as L2 has to have specific pedagogy, and how do we develop the oral competencies of children so that by the time they get to grade 4, where we are switching off from using L1 as medium of instruction, the students have enough competencies now to talk and interact in the teaching and learning process. When English becomes now a medium of instruction from grade 4 onwards. But the second commitment in that same policy is making clear that from grade 4 onwards, every child would have the right and the option to choose which language now they want to study. I want to study Maninka. I want to study Jola. And if it is my choice, I should not be denied.
But from grade 1 to 3,
is medium of instruction. L1 is used as medium of instruction. That is when you are teaching literacy, when you are teaching mathematics, when you are teaching science, you teach it through the L1.
Through the L1.
And that means, that's why I said to you, this has a lot of preparation. It needs a lot of logistical arrangement, because you have to, one, standardize the orthography, codify these languages he mentioned to you, that I can speak all of, for example, or I can speak Fula. But can I write effectively Fula in a structured, standardized way to observe the language rules? That has implication in codifying this language. So that the way you write and the way somebody else in a different situation writes the same language, you are observing the same rules. That means codification. We are in the process of establishing a team of linguists and various stakeholders so that we can come up with the codification of these languages. The way I write and the way you write materials using those languages should be the same, because we are using the same rule. And we should have dictionaries for this language. And we should have agreed vocabulary. If, for example, you want to write computer in Mandinka or Pular or Wolof, how do you write? We have to agree on those kind of things, because these textbooks are written in English. And if you are to teach these subjects through those L1, you have to find a way to agree on terms on what you call these items, these materials, which are, actually not found in our languages, but they are found in the teaching and learning process, and we have to find a way to. So this is the process. That's one thing. We're also designing teaching and learning material. It's good to have the policy. It's good to have an agreed orthography.
Yeah.
It's good to codify. But the teaching and learning material, what are they? The students' textbooks, the teachers' handbook, or scripted lesson at the level of foundational literacy and numeracy classes from ECD to grade 3, we have agreed as a ministry that we will have to develop what you call scripted lessons for teachers. Because that scripted lesson is showing step by step how you deliver these lessons, how you monitor and evaluate these lessons. And that is the structure we have learned from EI, and that's the structure we have learned from other, partners. And that is part of the foundational literacy numeracy strategy that we are using as a ministry. Then you have to develop those materials. And finally, you have to develop the student readers. So if you have to do this, it means a lot of preparations. So I know the excitement is high from the public, but that's why this discussion we have with you is very important. Is very important.
It is.
We will go to different platforms and engage the public to know, because every one of us has a stake in this.
Yeah.
As parents, as people working in different institutions, for example, I would expect by now we are sharing the policy. By now, the training institutions, those who are responsible for training our teachers, to know that if this is a policy that the ministry has to implement, how do we begin in our teacher training program to start training them on these languages. You want the university to come on board. You want the examination bodies in Ghana. People are taking at the worst level. Children have the option to do these languages at worst level. And in many other countries, Nigeria, with all their numerous languages, they still have that. We are just starting. And then I want to really appeal to the public to be patient with us and understand better that this is not something that we can rush. We'll have to do this strategically or phase by phase approach because the resources are another thing. Maybe
can I add this to what he has said?
Yeah.
He said very important things.
Very exciting, but also
technical.
And it's a lot of...
You know, by way of preparation, he mentioned there will be need for us to establish what I would call interdisciplinary committees. Because he's told you, children are going to learn in their own language from ECD to grade 3. And every subject will be taught in the language. It means that you have to develop the necessary vocabulary for it. In mathematics, in science, in social sciences. And that's why I say you have to have mathematicians, economists, philosophers, all these in a committee to agree. How do we say this? It is not, we are not the first to do that. If you look at all the technical terms in English and French, which I know, they are either from Greek or from Latin. And we are happy, we are lucky that we are in a multilingual situation where there are many languages. If I cannot get this in Mandinka, why should I be ashamed to borrow it from Wolof and Mandinkanize it? Vice versa. This is an enrichment. Multilingualism is enrichment, is not a cause. Some intellectuals in Africa say it is a cause we cannot develop because there are too many languages. It's a lie. Do you know how many official languages are in Switzerland? 4. One of them is dying, Romance. My professor did a research in in Hungary when I was in France. At one place there are 14 official languages regionally. Each one is as important as well as regionally. So this is not peculiar to Africa.
Yeah.
It's only that all the languages have died. The last language, which is not English in England, died about a few years ago. And it is happening in other countries. But this new linguistic nationalism that is emerging all over the world is going to stop it. In France, Breton is not dead. It's the same as Celtic language in England. They are the same. So they are struggling, and you know why the Catalan people are struggling in Spain? Economically, it's the richest region. But linguistically also, they don't want Catalan to die. It's a language, important language. So it is only we who in Africa, we think it is very natural for us to be just wallowing in stupidity in foreign languages. That's what we want to stop. So a big work is now going to happen. We're going to have all these teams to have. In Senegal, they have done it. In Mali, they have done it. They have developed vocabulary in all these domains. So we can for us, it's a ridiculous. Because Senegal, they have been working on Wolof for a long time. They have had all this material that they have this scientific term, they have this, the dictionary that he's talking about. They have done that years ago. You know, so we can, and in fact, we have harmonized the Wolof orthography here with that of Senegal. And we are harmonizing all these closely related languages across Africa. I am part and parcel of a commission in Bamako, Akaland, Africa Languages Academy. You have each language commission there. You have Wolof, Mandinka. Mandinka we call it Mandenkang, because you have Jula, Maninka, Mandinka of Gambia, and Bambara, and many Mauka Kang, and many. There are many dialects. So we call it under one cover Mandenkang. You have all these commissions there, Wolof, Professor Kai is the chairperson of that. So it is time we also did what is in the interest of ourselves.
Yeah.
To develop. India is scientifically at par with them because they are not using English. They were colonized by the English. They are using Hindu.
Yeah, they are.
Good.
So, Sanyang, let's look at the mapping that you guys will be able to do.
Thank you very much. In 2023, we had support from the World Bank to do a language mapping in all the public schools in the Gambia.
Yeah.
Those are government schools and then grant-aided schools. And in this language mapping, we want to know exactly what are the dominant languages of children in those schools.
Okay.
Now, like Uncle Sida said, if I say L1 or if I say mother tongue, I'm talking about maybe the tribe I belong to, for instance. But when we say here L1, it's the language that the child understands from home with. It is important that we know that in the Gambia, we have about just 1% of Gambians who speak English at home. Just 1%.
Just 1%.
So 99% of the rest speak our national languages. And these children, they think in those languages. Whatever they want to do, they have to do it in those languages. So when we did this language mapping with the support of the World Bank, we went to the schools. We had sessions with students. We had sessions with school administrators. We had sessions with parents. We go outside to the playground to listen to the children. What language are they speaking when they are playing? We go to the classroom. When the teacher gives them a task to do, in what language are they communicating? We listen to them and record. We go and stand at strategic places in the community to hear what the parents, which language the parents are talking, if they are going to the market, for instance. All right. So we did this in all the public schools in the country, over 630 schools. And the results show that now you can go to a particular school and find only one language to be dominant. Previously, we were into literacy in the national languages, but we go to a school, we will have about 5 different national languages in one school. To teach them literacy, which was a challenge because we will not have the teachers for all those languages. So this 2023 mapping has shown that if you go to, at most, you can have 3 languages in a school. And that is only going to be around this Combo area, Region 1 and some parts of Region 2. But if you go further east, you will realize that you have 1 dominant language and then maybe at most 2. So the language mapping has shown that the dominant language of every school is being highlighted. So at any given time, if you knock at the curriculum office, we can tell you, okay, if you go to this particular school, this is the language that is dominant there. We are not saying they cannot speak the other languages. No,
but this is
in the Gambia we have that advantage. Many people are multilingual. You can either speak Mandinka Fula or Mandinka Jola or whatever. Right? So that is the advantage we had. But if we are to teach the children, because the policy is saying the language of instruction should be in the first language of the child. So you'll have to have a dominant language. Remember, Mr. Jang said, at grade 4, our languages will now become subjects. I will want to study Mandinka. I will want to study Olof. I will want to study Manjaku or whatever. That is starting at grade 4. English from ECD to grade 3 will be a subject. Second language. Okay, so language mapping, I can tell you, if you have the opportunity, we can show you maps. It is important that we realize.
The report, that the World Bank report, I think I saw something that I was reading through.
Exactly.
Yeah, I saw it today.
So that can tell you in every community, these are the dominant languages throughout the country. And Mandinka, it is important we realize that Mandinka covers the whole country. In all the regions. When we are doing the mapping, we had 6 regions, but now we have about 8 educational regions. So we can tell you in every educational region, what are the dominant languages there. For example, if you go to, let's say, Basse, the dominant languages will be Mandinka, Fular, and Sarahule. But if you go to some communities, you will not see Mandinka there. You only see Sarahule. Their dominant language is going to be Sarahule. If you go to, let's say, Honorable Sida mentioned, let's say Mayok, People may say Mayok is in Foni. So obviously their dominant language will be Jola. No. In Mayok, the dominant language is Pular. If you go to, let's say, Jalambere, it has shown that the dominant language there is Sarahule. If you go to Jahali Medina, for instance, the language mapping has shown that the dominant language in Jahali Medina is Sarahule. Now, if we say the dominant language in Region 6, which is Basi, is going to be Mandinka, Pular, and Sarahule, are we saying you don't have people in Basi who speak Olaf?
No,
we are not saying that.
there are people.
There are people in Basi who can speak Olaf. But they can also speak Mandinka, either Mandinka, Pular, or Sarahule. So that is why we have to look at the dominant language of every school and then have those children being instructed in those dominant languages. That was what the language mapping was able to show us at the end of the day. We have contacted the parents. We looked at, had a discussion with the parents. We observed them when they were going to the market or at the village Bantaba. We had teachers. We interacted with teachers to know if they are trying to explain certain concepts to the children and they cannot understand, what language do they use to be able to explain and understand. We had records of that. Parents also, the students themselves, in their classrooms when they are doing a class exercise, or when they are at the playground, what language do they communicate in? So all those things we have gathered, because if we are going into this messaging set, it needs a lot of preparation. We cannot just jump and say, okay, this is what we are going to do. We have to support ourselves with evidence. Research evidence. And this is what the language mapping is telling us.
I was reading through the report before this show, because I don't know a lot about these things. So I was just looking around. I came across that report, and interestingly, there's so much data on that report. So much data. And one of the interesting things I saw when you guys interacted with the teachers, they will say, when they're out of the classrooms, the students were not speaking English. They were only speaking in the local languages.
That is why I said, if you look at the Gambia, only 1% communicate in English. In their homes. So if they are out of the classroom or out of the school, what language do they go to? They go to our national languages.
So does it mean that from the primary 1 to 3,
ECD to grade 3,
all these students will be taught the dominant languages in their regions? Or how do you determine what language is taught at what school?
Okay. This is what he was just trying to explain in that language mapping exercise which was conducted using, and I think he explained the methodology. Questionnaires were used, observation tools were used. You just go straight to classroom and observe. You don't ask. You can ask, but you can also use that tool to just observe what language people resort to when they have challenge in the L2, which is English. Or when children are at break, what language. So you just there to observe. So that this is how we gather evidence to see if they are speaking this language at playground, during break, in class, and you question them also. They fill questionnaires, and they evidently show you that this is the language that they can communicate in more effectively, meaning that is the L1. So you have scenarios where some schools, you can use only 2 languages, Mandinka and Pular, or Mandinka and Wolof, like some regions we know, Region 6. Predominantly, Sarahule, Mandinka and Pular will suffice. You will go now to the level of schools. Which of those schools in Region 6 are just comfortable using Mandinka alone? The data has shown that. The data has also shown us in some schools you may use more than 1 language, but it's between 1 to 3 at most.
At most,
in given schools. So if you know that, that is part of the planning that you have to do in order to intervene and use a particular language there, because you're basing it on that evidence. We'll continue to do language mappings, but the major ones probably is very expensive. Could be done every 5 years or so, depending on the availability of resources. But the regions, every regional office, we have encouraged them to continue to do language mapping exercise using these different tools that we are talking about, so that we can update. The regions can recommend to say, okay, based on the data we are collecting, this particular school now, has this major languages or this particular language as a major dominant language. So we are recommending that language be used there. But that is when we do all the necessary preparations.
Yeah.
Codify the languages.
And what's the timeline for that?
Well, we have all the plans in place. We are waiting for resources.
Okay.
And we are engaging the public, the government, and everybody to know. For example, we have the opportunity to pilot test through a pilot that did not include this.
Yeah.
So thank you, CEO, for allowing us to leverage on that pilot.
It's
because
two-sided.
it's going to be
we are also learning from this wall of thing.
It is going to be really unfair to them.
Yeah.
As an organization, we signed contract with them to really focus on mainstreaming effective intervention strategies, which is monitoring, teacher training, the design and development of teaching and learning materials in literacy and numeracy in AGs. So if you're asking them to allow us pilot tests, the reason we are doing that is because there was a delay in this third-party implementing partner consultancy, which was meant to take all the 7 languages at a go. And then we say, if these people are going to allow us, let's just use a language. At the time, they were preparing for the start of their pilot in October. The materials that were readily available so that we do not put any extra pressure on them to refine-tune this material before printing was English. Sorry, was all of it.
And I think I wanted to come there because I think that is the big elephant in the air in the country, right? Because this is what, and I saw the clarification from the minister. Actually, that's when I even got to know about this project, the clarification. So I thought it was important. Yes. So the talk around town is, and I think when I spoke to you, I said this to you, I had so many people reach out to say, we need to have this conversation, this new education system policy that is coming on. But I think the notion that is outside and what I'm hearing is a little different.
It's totally different.
Because what I got to understand is, y'all are teaching our kids only Wolof, and they will learn Wolof, and then that's how a lot of people understand. That's how a lot of people understand. Now, my question is, how did you come up to choosing Wolof as the language that you will use as a test at these schools?
No, like I said, the design of that project already was agreed on between EI, MOPSI, and the partner, which is the World Bank, who is supporting that. To say we are going to support you to have EI pilot tests, mainstreaming their strategies in your school. It's no more an after-school program. We cannot afford it. So we said, that's fine. We want to do that. What we are learning from the EI pilot is no more about whether the children will perform. That's given.
That's given, yeah.
What we want to learn from that pilot is whether the way they are monitoring, routine monitoring, close monitoring, and providing feedback to the teachers. In their case, it was after school, they were using facilitators. And in their system, they have what you call field officers, and they have pedagogic leaders, in addition to the facilitator. So they had a facilitator who will be engaging the students and deliver the lessons. They had field officers who will be routinely monitoring these classes and sit with the teacher or the facilitator, observe what they're doing, pick up any challenges they have, and engage their facilitator in discussion on how to support them do it better. They had pedagogic leaders who will routinely also engage the teachers if there are any capacity gaps that was picked up during the monitoring. These pedagogic leaders will engage those facilities. We are seeing if we can mainstream that system, because already in our conventional schools, we have agreed to establish what you call senior masters monitoring teaching and learning in our classes. That's why some of the senior masters are given reduced load of teaching. Because instead of teaching this number of periods, we are saying we are going to give you half load so that you will have time to go into this classroom and see those class teachers, how they are teaching, what the gaps are, and support them. Already that was there before we engaged this. Already also there was this arrangement to have cluster monitors who are assigned number of schools. That's why they are called cluster monitors. The schools are, arranged in such a way that every cluster monitor has number of schools within your cluster. And we expect them, when they visit the schools, they support admin in terms of whatever financial or administrative matters they need support on. But more importantly, they get into the classroom and observe teaching and learning and provide pedagogic support. We are seeing less leverage on their system and see how we reinforce that. So that if our cluster monitors can get into the classroom, observe the teaching and learning and provide pedagogic support the way AI is doing it, we'll be better off. Okay? So we also know they have a system of training teachers. They are facilitators.
Yeah.
We want to leverage on that kind of training. This is why under the pilot that you've seen, once a while we gather teachers who are in this pilot to train them on the new content that we are developing. But we have seen them utilize properly the scripted lesson. The scripted lesson is a detailed description, step by step, on how you deliver a content to the teacher. There's no more the teacher expected to go and develop lesson plans right there, because that's even a good thing for the teachers, because they are taking that responsibility of them to go back home when they are engaged in other things to sit and develop, scheme of work, lesson plan. For these teachers in the pilot schools, we are giving them a detailed scripted lesson. But then, those are the things we want to learn from them. And this is the area they have competence in. They are not linguists, they are not experts in national language. So it will be really unfair if we wanted them to, take up these languages with all these challenges that we have mentioned about designing these teaching and learning materials, harmonizing the orthography and so forth, to ask them to do that. It's unfair. So what we had when we started this discussion, the same bank linked us with support system in Senegal. Like Honorable Jata said here, something very important to know. If the languages are the same, and then you can leverage with your colleagues in Senegal and adapt their material. Their Mandinka material, their Pular material. Senegal has now gone very far with some of these languages. The material that they were able to give us in terms of starting our preparation for the October pilot to start was all of. So we had to come back as a team and work quickly to adapt the material we receive from them, the scripted lesson we receive from them, and align it to the scripted lesson that EI is using, so that we can now submit to EI readily printable material, because that's what we are obliged to do with them.
So if I understand you, so it's not just about having, because the argument I hear is there are other languages that have materials available. But if I understand you properly, it's not just having words and written. It's more about having a scripted lessons and others available, readily available.
Absolutely.
And Wolof was the only one that you
at the time we were starting the printing. For piloting, because rest assured of one thing, myself and Ansu working at curriculum, we were in this for the past 15 years.
Wow.
We piloted in 100 schools, 5 languages. And therefore we know what materials are available. And of course, orthography is available. Even the orthography we had, when we started this Wolof pilot, we had to refine and finalize that orthography so that the codification is
Would
out
be
of
easier.
that aspect is out of the codification process now. This consultancy service we are giving to the third party implement is a 5-year consultancy. And because to do this is very technical, we are paying for that service. We are working with that whoever is going to win the contract, and that we are expecting is late because that consultancy services should have been, contracted by now. It should have been
With material
because
production.
It's a 5-year program. If we had it our way as a ministry, we would have had that consultancy services in place. We would not even use EI to pilot anything. This is the responsibility because it's fully packaged in that consultancy service, that they should work with the ministry, different units of the ministry, but more particularly with the curriculum directorate to design and develop these languages, teaching and learning material for these languages, and pilot test them. Again, I have to emphasize this. You cannot come up with new material and roll it out. You design and develop material with an assumption. The content that you're developing, the pedagogy that is aligned to that, the assessment that is aligned to that. You have to go and pilot test that. And the fact that we are paying for this service, it is the responsibility. We hold that consultancy service because it's a consortium. We are paying 5 million for the 5 years to work with not only the national languages, but they work also on other domains like teacher training, assessment, use of ICT, and so forth. So we will hold them accountable for delivery on that contract, on everything that we agree. The design of teaching and learning material in all these languages, 7 languages, that's what we have in the policy, and the pilot testing of these languages, the teacher training, in-service teacher training on these languages, and so forth. So that when we test all these materials, we will come to the conclusion that yes, we are happy with the level of these materials. They are readily available now for rollout. Then the logistic of rollout, whether it's going to be government supported or partner supported, means everywhere we have on our language mapping exercise that this particular language or languages are the dominant languages. The teaching and learning materials are available. We train the teachers in those schools, but we link up with Gambia College and University so that as part of their pre-service teacher training, they are also including these languages because it's a policy now. But how far are we going to implement that policy soonest depends on a lot of things.
And what's that?
Resources.
Resources.
Yes.
Resources. Honorable, and he said something very important. Because for me, I think it's important we clarify this. Because material, availability of material. And that has been the argument, if you look at what is on our WhatsApp groups, on social media, the argument is why Wolof? Why not Mandinka? Why not Fula? Because even going through the World Bank report, the most dominant language is Mandinka in most of these regions. Then Wolof, Fula and Sarahule and Wolof, but I think it's Mandinka mostly.
Yeah.
But why the Wolof? But he has made it clear that it's because when they were doing the testing, it is the Wolof material that is readily available. And I think that is the misunderstanding out there. People are saying, why Wolof when Mandinka is the most dominant? So religion, tribe, religion, and all these things are very sensitive. So that's why I said, I think it's good to have these conversations, bring the officials here, and clarify these things so that we understand what is the logistics that entails all of this. That way people understand. When it comes to material, apart from Wolof, it seems like only Wolof is readily available the time this testing was starting.
But they are in a better position to answer that question. But you see, the problem is the fact that the policy is talking about implementing 7 languages.
7 languages.
The small of them, which is Manjak. That should convince people that we are not talking about teaching one particular language.
Yeah. Very important.
It's like you are standing on the road with a lot of loads. You cannot carry all of them. And somebody comes and says, can I help you carry this for you for the time being?
For the time being.
You'll find it on the way. He's not going he or she is going to take it just somewhere where you are going to meet it.
Yeah.
He carries you one of your suitcases. And somebody is asking, why did you give your suitcase to this person? When you cannot carry all of them at the same time. And then you have a willing person who is prepared to do it at no cost to you. I think this is what, the policy has, we are, like he said, the preparation for implementing the policy is huge.
Yeah. And it's very clear.
And then somebody comes, okay, we can carry one, and then you are ready with one. There is one that I told you, we harmonize the orthography of Wolof with the orthography of Wolof in Senegal. We have had meetings here twice and there. And they have had contacts with them too. But I know I have participated. I was there with Professor Kerr in 2 occasions. So that's the problem. So, people must not start looking at this from an ethnic point of view.
That is where the problem is.
And it is not, there is no priority being given to any language.
No. They are
all the languages, the fact that you are teaching Manjak, are you not surprised? Where is it?
When I saw Manjak, I was like, whoa.
It's a very small community here.
And that's very important, the consideration.
Also, it's a very small community.
Just in one area.
So that should convince people that the country we are out, in fact, that the policy cannot do anything on that, because that's the UNESCO declaration since 1953. It is the right of every child to begin formal education in his L1. That's the policy that everybody is trying to implement. We are just very late.
Yes, very.
Very late.
Everybody should tie his belt or her belt and make sure that we start freeing ourselves from this linguistic slavery and stop talking about this language and that language.
Important.
All of them are important as far as the policy is concerned. Every policy has not made an exception of any one of them.
Yeah.
So what's happening is just it's a trial.
It's a trial.
And
it's the success of the project also depends on the trial.
On the trial.
How has you guys been able to roll this into, just for the first time, roll it into your project that is not even part of it and be able to start it? How is that transitioning?
Bring it into the discussion. It's everybody worked hard.
Yeah.
And for me, the most important thing at this point is when we started, it was like, okay, we cannot do it your way. It's too expensive. But we do want to do it. So where do we start? And we decided on, the whole team now, because we came together, we already had technical teams and meetings were hot. And the decision came to try as much as possible to keep that cost down. Now, in that, MOPSI said, let's not go the direction that EI started. We can't go there.
Yeah.
But what we can do is we will provide, you don't need your centers. We will provide you with our schools. We have schools, we have buildings.
Yeah.
We have people who are already working. We have the heads, we have the senior management all the way down. And all of them, let us all think about how we bring them into this. That was where we started to roll. The next thing, your field officers. Where are they? Those field officers who came to EI on secondment. So when the project phased out, exit funding, we returned them to MOPSI. So we said, they are yours now.
Yeah.
What do you mean they are yours now? I said, you gave them to us. You forgot?
Secondment.
And then it was like, okay, let's look at where they are and we bring them together and they do the same work that we're doing, but we will pay. They are our teachers. See, we've come a long way. it's really been mainstreaming. I can call 2 or 3 more other things that we had to do that way in order to be able to just bring the cost down so it will be affordable and sustainable. So that's why I say don't go that way.
And that is the cost issue that she mentioned. Listen, we are looking at learning, but learning something that we can sustain.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we are lucky to be supported through the partner, the World Bank. But what if we are not getting similar funding support in the future?
Yeah.
And we are starting something very good. That's why we were very careful in the design of that pilot to make it really something that mirrors what we can sustain. That's the issue of course, he's talking about. And that is also deciding the scope. The scope for the mainstreaming was meant to be in 60 schools. Yeah, because the budget line we are giving them, given all the negotiation we were able to do and ask them to drop here, cut here, we thought we could only intervene in 60 schools for a start with them. So this is
even that came down to 55.
Yeah, that ended up coming down to 55. Right now it's 55 in the 60 because we really wanted to maintain the 60, but we realized because it's a pilot and there is some of the schools that are meant to be in that pilot are also in another pilot, which is the CRS pilot. We removed those 5 schools from the EI, and then now we have 55 schools. But again, this is
a pilot.
Yes,
a
pilot, and we want to sustain it. Therefore, we have to be reasonably careful in what we put in that pilot.
Just to add on to what Mr. Jack said, if you look at the implementation guide that we are developing for this language education policy, like he said in the beginning, we cannot just have roll it out to all the schools at once. At least we have to pilot it. Now, that implementation guide is telling us that year 1, we will do the material production. By the time we go to year 2, we will start the piloting of the other languages. That is Mandinka, Pular, Jola, Sarahule, based on the language mapping that we have. Take sample schools from those language mapping and then pilot those languages with the new design that effective intervention came up with. For example, the use of the scripted lessons. Now, when we develop the scripted lessons, we are going to pilot them, starting with grade 1 and ECD, move on. By the next year, we roll out grade 1 across the country in the other language, in all the languages, and start the preparation for grade 2. When we do the material production for grade 2, the following year we will do the piloting for grade 2 materials. By the time we get to the 3rd year, we are now rolling out grade 2 because we have piloted in the previous year. So everything cannot be done 1 year. This is an opportunity for the sector to pilot the effective intervention strategies using our all of materials that we have got in collaboration with Senegal and what we have already got in country here. That's an opportunity for us. That's why we just picked one language, so that at no cost to the sector. The implementing partner, by the time they come in, we would have got ideas as to how we can roll this out, how we can roll out the policy. Because the policy is saying the language of instruction is the L1 of the child. So as of now, we are not even having, let's say, science to be taught in all. We are not having that. It's the literacy component. It's a process.
It's a process.
So right now, we're just dealing with one literacy in all of just one. And then by next year, when we start the material production, all the other subjects, because that will require the translation of all the curriculum materials from ECD to grade 3, which is huge, and it requires a lot of resources.
Now, those are the technical discussions that we need to do. We are starting it locally with your station. We'll go around to other media houses. Because the public needs to know.
The people need to know.
So, we want their support. whoever can support in one way or the other, whether technical support or material support, whatever, we welcome it. But to prepare for this, like I said, it's not a joke.
Yeah.
We have to well prepare for the teacher training aspect, the materials, and that is not a small thing.
And the biggest challenge is the resources.
Resources.
And and because of that, we cannot put a timeline to when you will be fully introducing this to all the schools across the country.
No, because if you assort me the resources that are needed, I can put a timeline. But if the resources have to wait for whatever we can get from government or partners, and you cannot determine, then I think the safest thing is we are beginning this year, and this is going to continue in this manner. But let everybody be excited and be very much ready to support the process. At the end of all these preparatory stages that we are in, somebody can now ask my office or government or the ministry, when are you implementing this, if we give you these resources? Yes.
That is the big question.
I'll be happy to respond.
And then how much can EI also be able to come in and just continue to support and extend to other regions?
Life grows. Tomorrow or the day that we are all going to be happy about it, I may not be there.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll be, doing some consultancy on another area and let the younger people
the work challenge in this country.
Yeah.
People run away from it. The challenge is, are we prepared? We, I mean the adults, are we prepared to forgo English for our own languages? Are we? That's the fundamental question. Can we do without doing our language, without our languages? Are we prepared? Are you prepared to learn Mandinka or whichever language you choose? You.
I am.
Okay, start doing it now. There are people out there who are prepared to teach you. So the thing is, this should have happened since 1965. But it has not happened.
Yeah.
People think that we should just continue with it. We will go nowhere. We will go nowhere. So it is time we learn our own language, we adults.
Yes.
And I know some young people are now prepared, have been succeeded in sensitizing you, and some are even beginning to write in their own language.
Receive a lot of
You understand that? So, but that's not enough. We must begin to learn. You see, what Siad Barre did in Somalia is what should happen here. I think so.
Yeah.
You know what he did when he took over? I don't like military governments, but I like that one, for one thing. Because when he came, he gave an ultimatum to the civil service. By this number of years, anybody who is not capable of writing and reading and writing in Somali, you will lose your position. And in the process, they created a committee to design an orthography for Somali. It's not only Somali, they are lucky that 98% of the population speaks Somali. But there are over 170 languages in Somalia. Then they called somebody from SOAS, School of Oriental African Studies, and that's again, and somebody from a Polish guy, Professor Andrzejewski, who is not a Somali. He designed their orthography, exactly the same type of orthography that we are now using for all the languages in Africa. And then from, I think he took over in 1969. By 1974, Somali language became the only language to be taught in the school from preschool. And today, Somali is the only language in the system from preschool to university. And before, there were 3 official languages there. But they knocked them all out. Because what is happening in Rwanda right now? First, Rwanda had French as an official language. They changed over to English. Do you know which language now is their official language? Since 2 years now. And they are now decided, finally, that is their language, Swahili. Because their main language, Kinyarwanda, is almost a dialect of Swahili. And Swahili is developed because they have been writing it for years in Somalia, in Tanzania. So decided to adopt Somalia.
Kenya.
So it's official language, everything is, why do we think that we should continue with English?
It's about time.
When we are performing so badly in English. Can you imagine that?
Yeah, it's about time.
It's about time we change.
It's about time.
We cannot be free.
Yeah.
And Baba, Africa, this is and let me tell you my third paradox. It is the richest continent in the world. There is no doubt about that. But the people of Africa, they are called the wretched of the earth. The poorest. Go to Congo. Every step you talk in Democratic Republic, every step you take, you think there is a mineral of one form or the other. But if you go there, you look at the Congolese and look at yourself, you say, where are these people from? You would not think that they are from such a rich country. They are always trying to encourage them to fight and cut each other, and while they are doing that, they steal all their minerals from them. That's what is happening. So I think it is time we really made our independence meaningful. As long as we continue to use these foreign languages, they are going to keep us at bay and will not be able to move.
I think people have to believe that you can become a doctor when you start learning in your language.
The
can become a
Chinese
scientist. You have the Russians, they succeeded. You go to Turkey, they learn in their language. And they have become, very good doctors and scientists. So when I start learning in Mandinka, by the time I finish, I can become a doctor.
Of course.
I can become a surgeon, whatever. Engineer, whatever.
Anything you can.
So people have to believe
any
in
language
that.
for that matter.
It's not about the tribe. We are talking about the first language of the child.
That's important.
Language the child is communicated to from home. You, the parent, can help the child. If one person can speak English at home, the 99%, what do they speak? Mandinka, Wolof, Yola, Sarakulan, and the others.
Yeah, that's true. That's very.
So if there is something that the child needs to talk about or learn from, the parents can help.
Yes, true.
But we have to believe that you can be whatever in this world when you start learning in your language. We have to believe in that, and it is possible because other countries have succeeded. You talked about South Korea. Where are they today? If you compare them to Ghana, when they got independence at the same time. That is something else.
That's true. That is true. Important conversation. I hope we can.
We need to have this in the local national languages
I'm
as
going to
well.
bring you guys in a month time also, and then this time I promise we're going to do it in the local languages.
Sure.
But I think this is our introductory program. It's good to just let people know and everybody understand.
Before them learn to read and write.
I will write. I will. I'll come to you.
Sure.
I'll come to you. But finally, Madam Auntie Fatou, what is your final message, especially on the project that you guys have started rolling? Final message, how has it been effective and stuff like that?
I think my prayer is for the whole sector, everybody that is involved in this, to agree to move on with it and give it justice. This is not a playing thing. We have already moved our children. This is grade 1, children who are just getting into school. We have inspired them so much. You should see these kids. I should send you videos and you see these kids in class and what they're doing and what they are learning. From, L1 and L2 combination. Because we have drawn, for the phonics, we have done all the letter sounds ready, and it involves the wall of letter sounds that are not found in English. So these kids are already learning more than us. They're communicating in both ways. They're spelling in English, they're spelling in Wolof. They're reading in English, they're reading in Wolof. One term.
Wow, interesting.
In one term. So if we all hold on to what we are doing, and this goes from the teachers to the supervisors, the field officers, pedagogy leaders, the MOPSI staff in the regions, because they're really the people on the ground and are really doing well. You know, so that it becomes more than just a program. It becomes something from our hearts.
Yeah.
I think the other languages would pick up so fast, that we will get to where we want to get in less time than we are thinking now.
Yeah.
So that's my message. I'm like to MOPSI, directors down to cleaners, everybody, and for us to take it into the homes. The parents are excited. You will be excited when you see what the kids are doing there.
Sure.
Yeah.
So that's my prayer. It's a prayer. It's not even asking people. I'm hoping and praying that everybody continues to see the direction that we're taking and to help us succeed as far as the national languages are concerned.
Sure. Thank you. My last word will be for people to believe in what we are into. It is not about the tribe. It's about what the child should get. Research has shown that if you teach somebody in the first language, they can be whatever in life. If we get the resources, we get the support from communities, we will be able to get there. Inshallah.
Inshallah. Mr. Yang?
Yeah, thank you very much. I just want to thank you for this opportunity. And I want to encourage all other media houses to create such opportunities for us to talk to them and talk to the public. We are all in this together. And I want to thank EI for allowing us to test some materials through that pilot that they are doing. But I want to ask the public, our doors are open. We are always very much ready to participate in conversation, to clarify anything that people need clarity on. But for the purpose of this L1 language, I just want to re-echo the call from our linguist CDA and my desk officer Ansu. We cannot do it alone, but we need everybody to understand that together we can do it. This is not about ethnicity. This is about how do we leverage the children's learning so that they engage in the process of teaching and learning, and they can use prior knowledge. Children are thinking and they are learning right from the womb of their mom and the immediate environment, even before they get to school. Let's not disrupt that process of learning. Let's see how we can, leverage that experience that they have through using a language that they are comfortable in.
Thank you very much. Honorable, final message?
Yes, I think it is clear, it should be clear to people that the objective of learning these languages is to link the school to the home. Now the home and the school are separate. What the child learns at home, at the school, the parent is totally ignorant of that, particularly when he or she has not been to school. And therefore, the child can play games with him or her. I'm going to do my homework when in fact he is just joking.
Yeah.
But if the home and the school are linked, the parent can even help the child to do some of her homework. It is very important. It is time we embrace these languages. And one more important thing, we do not have respect for our people and we don't have respect for our languages. You know why? Just listening to the news in the Gambia. The first language they give news in is English. Who is listening to that?
1%.
Tell me. These are issues that nobody raises, but these are serious.
Yeah.
In a republic like the Gambia, where you have all these beautiful languages, you are speaking, your news is meant for those people. But you forget them and you give it in a foreign language. Just few people who speak that. And the majority, and it's not immediate. What is given in English is not what is given in Mandinka or Wolof.
Late.
Because I was just invited to a train in Soma by UNESCO sometime just last week. Those who are casting news. I gave a text. My colleague gave a text. I said, just one sentence. Just translate the first sentence. I'm not going to say because they listen to this, but it shows that that's what they are talking about, misinformation and disinformation. I think all these things should change. When we are giving news, give it first in the language of the country. Whichever language you choose, do it.
Yeah.
English comes late. After it is given in all these languages, better. But you give English news in English, and then people sit down. They will not know what has happened. And somebody will come and say this and that.
Yeah.
It's not correct.
It's not correct. Thank you very much.
What about I didn't want to come with, but if in our National
Assembly. Yeah.
Are they representing or
He has raised that several times. Yeah. Thank you very much, gentlemen and ladies. I appreciate your time. Hopefully very soon we'll have another conversation. Until we come your way next week again. Good night to you all. See you again. Bye-bye.
We are happy to announce the launch of our new logo. We have evolved since our incorporation in 1997, and it is time to refresh our new look to reflect who we are today. Before I reveal our new look, however, walk with me while I take you through our journey of the last 25 years. Trust Bank was incorporated on July 3rd, 1997 and began operations on October 1st, 1997. Following the collapse of the parent company of its predecessor, Meridian, the CBG stepped in and recapitalized the bank and held the shares in trust, thus the name Trust Bank. In 1999, the first investors who responded to the IPO and paid $1.50 per share received their maiden dividend of 50 bututs per share. In 2000, the bank fully paid back its investment by declaring another dividend of $1.20 bututs per share, making it a cumulative dividend per share of $1.70, which was 20 bututs above the purchase price. Between 2002 to date, share capital has increased from $27 million to $200 million, indicating that the bank has grown organically by plowing back profits to increase capital, while at the same time paying dividends to shareholders. The bank was listed on the Ghana Stock Exchange in November 2002, being the first ever cross-border listing in the sub-region. Now let's talk about awards. The bank was awarded the insignia of the National Order of the Republic of the Gambia, ORG, in the year 2010 by His Excellency the President of the Republic of the Gambia. During the past years, the bank has received so many national and international awards. Banker Magazine, 6 times. Global Finance, 6 times. Gambia Chamber of Commerce and Industry, 5 times. We began operations with 3 branches. Now, we have 18 branches and 20 ATMs and counting. On digital services, mobile app, check. Online banking, check. Transaction alerts, check. Watch this space. We've got more coming. Creating employment, yes, we've got that too. 400 and counting. And we take great care of our people too. Medical insurance, life insurance, private and state pensions, annual pilgrimages for both Muslims and Christians, training, yes, we do them all. One team, one family, one goal. That's the Trust Bank spirit. On corporate social responsibility, we have spent over $50 million in various causes. We care, and so we share. Over the years, we have paid over $1.6 billion to our shareholders, which translates to a whopping $20 per share and counting. Phenomenal returns for our shareholders who purchased at $1.50. Corporate taxes, over $1 billion is paid. Our journey started with a vision to create the kind of company that delivers quality services and innovative products with an inspired team dedicated to serving our customers, our environment, and our communities at large in the most caring manner. We remain fully committed to delivering excellent services to each of our stakeholders, customers, employees, shareholders, and partners. So, we remain true to who we have always been.